So I believe all of you are being muted automatically as participants, but we do have the chat open and I will be monitoring that throughout. And in fact, it is 10 o'clock. So I'm just going to go ahead and get us started here so we have plenty of time to get any instruction and then questions in at the end. My name is Angela Fox. I am with the Indiana State Library. If you guys have been here before and done the annual report, I am sure you are familiar with my name popping up in your inbox because I am the person who oversees the annual report here at the library. When someone directs you to ask a question to someone, it's probably coming my way. So hello to all of you. I have been doing this for about 9 years. I think when I last looked, this will be my ninth survey, but this is going to be my first survey with our new vendor, our new reporting tool, which is why we're here today. From logging in to locking your data, completing the annual report with LibPAS. I'm hoping it's LibPAS now. Lindsay can correct me if it's LibPAS. But yes, anyway, thank you all for joining us on this annual report tutorial that we'll be doing. Just a real quick bit of housekeeping up front before I kick it over to our speaker. Let me make sure I can get us moving here. So welcome and housekeeping, as I said. Thank you to everyone for showing up today. Yes, this is being recorded, so anybody who has to bounce out of here early, don't worry, it will be up and linked to our website as soon as we're able to do that. And just a little before we get started, when I say welcome, I thank you for joining us on this very important of all day. First of all, I'm sure you all know that we are well into the, I should say, annual Adopt a Rescued Guinea Pig Week. So I know that's on everyone's mind. But of course, it is also Jack Kerouac's birthday, National Girl Scout Day, and Alfred Hitchcock Day. So I know your calendars are busy with all of that. I appreciate you spending the morning with us. Looking at the graphic now, I just want to clarify, I am not endorsing anyone murder a rescued guinea pig. That was perhaps not the best layering job I did there. Okay, so all of that out of the way, this webinar is going to be an hour long, more or less. It is going to be worth 1 LEU. If you are watching this after the fact, you can still get your LEU, but there's going to be a little bit more arts and crafts involved as you will be making one for yourself. There are instructions in the text printed below this video, or you can go to our continuing education page and there are instructions linked to the LEU manual there. As I mentioned earlier, the chat is open and active. I will be watching it. I will be jumping in if if it is appropriate at the time, if there's a pause, if Lindsay is waiting for questions, or if it makes sense at the time. If I don't jump in right away, it just means that I've taken a note of your question and I will ask it when there is a break. There should also be time at the end for just open questions, both about the reporting interface and then if we do have enough time, just about the report in general, because I know those always do come up. And I think that about covers the housekeeping purpose of all of that. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this meeting over to Lindsay Thompson. She is the Director of Customer Service at Counting Opinions. Counting Opinions is that new vendor I keep mentioning. We had been with Bibliostat for years. I know you guys all know what happened with Baker and Taylor. Counting Opinion is who jumped in when we needed to find someone. They are the people who put together the new survey that you're working with now. LibPAS is the new tool. And for those of you who have played around with it, hopefully you've had a chance to. If you haven't, this will be a great introduction. But I'm going to go ahead and turn this on over to Lindsay.
Thank you so much, Angela. I appreciate it. And yes, you're right. It is LibPAS. So you said it correctly. That is the name of the tool, and we are Counting Opinions. And today I'm going to log in and show you a bit around. Angela, feel free to interrupt if anyone has any questions or if I'm going over anything they want to see it again. Okay, so right now I am here at in.countingopinions.com, and you'll come here to enter in your username and password. If you have misplaced that, you can use the password reminder feature, type in your email address, and it'll get sent to you. If you're new and you have not been assigned a username and a password, then please reach out to Angela and we can get you set up with one. So today I am going to log in as a test account. I'm going to log in with Adams Public Library. So sorry, Adams. I'm going to sort of show your report, but it's going to be the same or similar look and feel for everyone. So I will put in my username and password. select login. When I log in, it's going to welcome, it's going to say my library system name at the top. There are some documents here. This page may change up from time to time as we put more information. We might put the webinar link here so that you can reference that. Once you have logged in, you will select the enter button. And again, it will say your library's name, not Adam's, but you can select enter or this data input button up here in the upper right-hand quadrant of the screen to take you to the data input screen to start entering your data. There's also a few links that you'll see here. Log out, fairly straightforward. It logs me out and takes me back to this main screen. There are also a built-in directory, so a list of maps, libraries, and locations. If you want to look at that, you'll see that's available on the secure side as well. There's also a profile link. This will enable you to update the name and email address associated with the account if you want to. Home will take you back to this screen. And then menu, there's a built-in menu as well, which will show the options that you have. Right now, you just have access to the data input screen. We will launch reports access in the near future, so stay tuned for that. But for now, you have access to the data input screen. So this is your focus, since I know we're coming out with this a little bit late, but you'll come in here, select data input, and I'll talk a little bit about what's going on here. Hopefully it's fairly straightforward. But we'll start with navigation. So I'm going to direct your attention over here to the left-hand side. We have this navigation menu, and in here you can click on a different section of the survey and be taken to that section. You can, again, just click around. You can use the next or previous buttons to go forward or backward within the survey. And the one that I like a lot is the open all. Sometimes I just want to open everything and have it all listed on one long scrollable screen. So you can do that. You can close them all, collapse it. Again, click on something just to open that section. I also like to hide this navigation menu. Sometimes it just takes up too much of my screen. I just want to focus. Maybe you have things, you have a split screen and you have just half of this open and you have a report on the other side that you're trying to look at those numbers. So feel free to hide this left side navigation option. There's this little hide option down here, and you can always open it back up again if you want by selecting these two chevron symbols that will slide it back over. But again, I usually like it hidden so that I have more of the screen to view. You will also see most of those buttons listed up at the top. So you can go to the next or previous option. Save doesn't do much, I will say. The data saves as you go. So as soon as you enter a value into a field, and then exit that field, and you can exit by clicking outside of the field, by clicking enter, etc., you'll see those little load icons happening. Normally it's just that little small load icon, but there was a big one there too. But you'll see these little load icons. So the data saves as you go. As long as you exit the field, the data is saving. So this save button doesn't do much beyond that. If you don't see those little load icons, you should be automatically logged out if you don't see those. But if you're like, it seems like non-responsive, I'm not seeing anything, you can always reload your screen just to make sure that you have a connection to the server and everything is working as expected. So don't be afraid to periodically reload. As long as you still have a connection to the survey, it will just show that. But if you're working away here and you're not seeing those little load icons, I do suggest that it should, again, automatically log you out if you've broken your connection to the server. But that's just a thing that I like to check every once in a while. Review will this is used when you are verifying your survey. So I'll show that in a little bit. And recalculate is nice too. The calculations should happen as you go. You'll see there are some calculations in here, which I'll talk about. But if you feel like that total isn't accurate, you can use the recalculate to see if it changes. Again, it should auto calculate, but we do have this button here just to sort of trigger it. If you still think it's wrong, It's possible. So reach out to us. So this has all been set up this year. New, we have tested it, but you are our field test. So you may uncover little things. If you think you found something, please reach out to us so that we can correct it right away. And I'm sorry that you're having to do that this year. But unfortunately, sometimes that's just the way it is. We have looked it over. Angela's been very thorough. She's tested everything, but sometimes there are little things that are missed. So if you feel like you found something, please reach out, let us know. We can get it corrected for everyone really quickly. I'm going to start sort of at the top now and walk through some of the fields and some of the things that you'll see through the screen. So in this first section,
Oh, Lindsay,
there, Mhm.
I'm just going to jump in real quick before you get into the survey itself. We did have a question. Somebody mentioned they weren't able to update the profile.
Okay. I will look into that. So you've updated the name and email address, and it didn't take your changes.
I believe I can watch in the chat here and see if that is what he was talking about, but I believe that is. Is that something
This
that is
error.
that is
Okay,
supposed to be
yes,
active right now? Because I know you just
it
finished
is.
telling everyone I tested everything. I did not test that.
Well, yes. No, you tested the survey. No, that is a great point. I'll pass that on to IT and get that corrected because, yeah, it does seem like there's a little issue there. So I will
Oh, okay,
make
great.
sure that's updated.
Okay,
Thank you. Thank you
we're
for
back
pointing
up.
that out.
Thanks.
See, there's always going to be things that you find that we have overlooked. So yeah, we will get that corrected. I appreciate that. So on the first section, it's instructions that you'll find listed here. So you'll see, who to reach out to. Angela's contact information is right there if you don't have it handy in your inbox already, and some general overview. There's also a link to the signature page. You'll find this listed a few pages or a few places, excuse me, throughout the report so that you can send that in at the end once you've certified. You can also click on any of these section names to open them up. If they're in gray, they're closed, but if you click on the name, it will open it up. And you'll see here in this section that there are some fields that have this gray background. These fields are locked down. Sometimes they are locked down because they are calculated field, and sometimes they're just locked down because they are pre-filled. And if something needs to change, Angela needs to be notified about it so that we can make other changes. For example, library name. If your library name changes, which on occasion it may, maybe you've turned into a memorial library or there's been some other rebranding and your library name has changed. You can send that update to Angela. And the reason we do that is because it has to be coded a particular way. Maybe there's just a typo in your name and we just have to code it as a typo, not an official name change. Or maybe there was an official name change and it needs to be coded that way. So if there are any updates to these fields that are locked down, please reach out. We can make those on your behalf, and we just have to make some other updates in other places as well. There are also some fields that are pre-filled but are not locked, things that you can edit yourself. So if the director has changed at your library, you can certainly update that. You can highlight the name and you can remove it and type in the new director's name. And then as soon as you exit that field, click out of it, press tab, enter, however you exit that field, that information will save. There's a little tiny load icon there. It works as any other type of like word processing or form. You can put your cursor at the end of the field and use the backspace option to remove information. You can put your cursor at the beginning of the field and then use the delete button to get rid of that information. You can highlight the entire thing and remove that information. I'm going to put Kelly's name back in there, but very similar to other tools that you've used. So hopefully that should be straightforward. You can click inside any of the fields also that are open, and you can type information into there and exit the field to have it saved. But again, any of these these fields that are sort of locked down or have this gray background, you will need to reach out for any of those changes. There are also some fields that will be pull down menus, as in the case of this, like a yes, no question. Is the mailing address the same? If you say yes, then you won't see these fields. If you say no, then you'll see some additional fields for mailing address that you can adjust. Anything else in here? Oh yeah, there are some exception values. So I will talk about those. Here there is a fax number, but if this was blank, I can remove it. Just refresh. If this field is empty and you have this option for an exception value, there'll be this little checkbox here. And as you hover over the field as well, you may see this little pop-up just below my cursor that says exception, no fax for the fax number field. So I can click here and get that exception value to appear. As you can see in this case, the value that's listed is -1. In some cases, that may be different. I think for the closed hours fields, it'll just say closed. But in some cases, these exception values are used for two reasons, really. One, so that the field, if it's required, can be satisfied. It's like you don't have that, so you're answering the field, just not with a value. And in other cases, if it's included in a total or something, it's so that that exception value isn't included in the calculation. It's just treated as a null value. So you'll see in some cases those exception values exist. Very different than a 0. And I'll see if there are more exception values down here on fields that would be integer values to talk about that. The next section down here is the outlet section. This may appear a little bit differently than it has in previous years. And again, something that you'll want to review and make sure that all of your outlets are listed. We can certainly change the order. If the order is troublesome for you, you can reach out, and I'll share my email as well, or Angela can. And that if you have any closed branches, that they are also removed, like if they've been long closed. We've done a review of them, but just in case anything's missed, have a double check at your outlet section to make sure everything's accurate. If you have a new branch that needs to be added, or bookmobile outlet of some sort, please reach out and let us know, the name, address, when it opened, and we can get that loaded for you. You don't have the ability to sort of add them dynamically in here. We load them, we geocode them, we map them, and then all your information, historical data, stuff will be matched to the specific location. So you can look at trends and everything amongst your branches. So that one is a little bit different. Then you'll see those listed here. One after the other. In this case, you'll see 2 of them. You'll have the central library will be listed here as well, as well as your branches or bookmobiles, should you have any. So again, a lot of this information will be pre-filled. Some of it is locked down, that you won't be able to edit it. But you can go through here. If anything needs to be updated that is not locked, certainly go ahead and do that. You'll also have some pull down menus available here. So instead of just a yes, no, you have a few additional options that are listed here. So you can select from the available options. There is a section for your weekday hours and your weekend hours. And again, we have these exception boxes. So if your branch happens to be closed on a particular day, you can select these closed options for those particular open and closed times, should that be applicable to your library. There are some calculations as well that will happen based on the weeks and hours entered for the library. You'll see that total appear as you enter information in. I'll go through here. Oh, there are some fields that are date fields that may have a field mask on them. I think phone number is also one that has a field mask. So once you click in here, you'll see that the phone number will all be formatted in this consistent way with brackets and dashes. So as you enter that in, you will see that field mask, and you can just enter in the digits. You don't have to format it in any particular way. Let me Let me go over here and open up all the survey just to make sure I'm not forgetting any different types of fields that you'll see. I think we've gone over, oh yeah, no, I should mention repeating rows. You'll see that here. These ones are locked down, but for the population, but I believe we have another one listed down below as well that I'll talk about. Comment fields. I don't think member is. Sorry, let me just scroll through. Maybe that is the only repeating row we have. No, we have one down here. I thought we had another one. Okay. Right at the bottom. Let me get rid of that because some of these repeating rows groups have a lot of headers across the top. So you may have to scroll over as well on your form just to make sure that you're not missing anything. So in this section, library consultants, these rows will appear dynamically. So as you enter in something, as you click in this row and you start entering in your data, 1, 2, 3 main, etc., etc. You can go all the way over and enter that. Once I click in the next row, boom, it's going to appear another row down below. So these will keep appearing as many times as I click in there. It will add additional rows. You're always going to have one empty row at the bottom. There are these little red X's over on the right that will allow you to delete a row, and it will refresh as well. So you can go ahead and remove information, remove those rows if you need to. But it's okay that there are additional rows, like if you have especially an extra one at the bottom, that is perfectly fine. It's okay to have extra rows, but it will allow you to enter in a dynamic number. So some libraries may have 1 or 2 consultants and others may have 10. So you can enter in as many of those as you need to. There are also some fields that are comment fields, if you will. So something that you may enter a larger amount of information into. And there is this little corner option here where you can expand this out. So if you have a smaller comment, I think the default is just a few lines. But if you want to see more as you write, so that you can review the entire comment, certainly you can drag down the side of that to make the box a little bit larger or smaller, depending on your needs on the data input screen. And I think those are all the different types of fields that you'll see listed. So I also want to go over what you're going to see on the screen. So we'll just go through this one group in particular. So you'll see the group name in this case. It's paid time off per year for full-time librarians. There's a little description in this group. So it's giving you a little context to this. Then you will see there's these little checkbox located next to each different field. You can select these if you want. It's like a status flag. Some folks like to use these to check off things that they've done or that they've reviewed, as a little indicator to them. Some folks like to use them as something they want to circle back to, and you don't have to use them at all if you don't want to. The next thing that you'll see over here is the item number of the question itself. So you can click on these item numbers. These are hyperlinked. And what you'll see here is some information about that question. So the indicator or the question name is the number of vacation days. There happens to be a little definition for this question. So it says report the number or range of numbers of vacation days for full-time librarians, because we're in the full-time librarian section. And there is a short name. This is just the unique name for the question. You don't really need to worry about that. And then there are notes. These are question notes. I like to think of them as internal notes. And there's a little instruction up here at the top. They're useful to record notes about an interpretation, excuse me, of a definition for local use. So who to contact for information, maybe what report to run to get this particular data, or maybe you've reached out to Angela at the state library for a clarification of a definition and you want to make a note about that. This is the place to do it. It's on these question notes. And again, you access them by clicking on the question item number. And then this will pop up. These are notes that push forward in time. So I'll add it here on 11/5/25. They push forward in time and they're internal to your library. And I'll show you where to find these. I mean, you can click on the question and see them going forward, but I'll show you where you can find those as well in a moment. So next year when I come in here, any of these notes that I've added on the questions that are definitional notes, if you will be listed there for the future. So if I want to make if I want to add some notes about how I've collected this data, some things to help me out next year, since this is something that's cyclical that you only do once a year, you may want to put some information in there. And again, you can get a little quick view of the definition of this question as well. Then you'll see the name of the question. And then as you go over towards the right, you'll see there's also these little notepad icons. And when you hover over this, it will say add notes. These are annotations. These are things that you might be required to enter a note into to satisfy an edit check or to provide more context to the data. These notes do not get applied to future periods, if you will, so they don't automatically push forward in time. They are based on the data that you've entered. So they're like contextual information or explanations about why your numbers may be out of range compared to, the other libraries across the US. Or you could also apply annotations here on your own accord and not just if you're required to with an edit check, but you may want to provide more context to the data. This could be useful for things like, maybe your attendance went way up for programs because you got more programs with live pets and or live animals and they were a great hit. People loved the snake program or petting the gerbils. And so you can make a note of that. We had these different programs in the library, they were a huge success and they really increased our attendance, or whatever the case may be. It provides more context around the data. So these are annotations. You'll see the annotation listed here. You'll also see a little explanation here, input a note here to explain an anomalous value. Or if there is an existing note, and you'll see maybe some existing notes listed down below, you can select to reapply that. So I'm going to apply just a little test annotation here. And you'll see now my little notepad icon changed from just this gray color to an orange color, indicating that there is an annotation listed on this particular field. Now, when I click any other question, I'm going to have this existing note from my location, and I have the option to reuse it. I don't have to reuse it. Maybe it doesn't apply to this next question. But there may be some cases where, maybe your library is undergoing a renovation and it was closed for a certain amount of time, or some other things that have happened at the library that may impact your numbers, that you may want to, instead of retyping in that same annotation over and over again, you may want to just reapply it to other fields. So you have that option to check to reapply that particular note. I do want to point out that once you've reapplied a note, and I have it here listed, I can't click on this reapplied note. I can delete it, but I can't click on it to edit it. On the source note, the original note that I've added, I can click on this to edit it. So if I want to make an update here, if I've noticed that there is a typo or something of that sort, I can click on this original note and go ahead and update it. And now my reapplied note will also be updated, but I can't edit this reapplied note. Okay, so that's one thing to note. The other thing to note is my original note, I have this option to delete it. I can't delete it really if it's been applied elsewhere. So you'll notice that when I refresh my screen, it'll like see that it's been deleted, but it's not deleted. So if I have reused that note elsewhere, it won't let me delete that note. So as soon as I refresh, you'll see it listed here. You'll also see these little numbers listed next to the questions when I refresh my screen. And those notes now that I've added will also be listed down at the bottom. So it's going to say this is like the first note. That's been added in the order of the survey, the number of the question item number, and then my note and the date that it was added as well. So those are a couple things to keep in mind with notes. They're like a little bit more nuanced, if you will, when you're reapplying a note or when you are trying to delete notes that have been reapplied. Okay, so something to think about. I can remove this note as well, and then I can go ahead and remove the original note. But those are some things to keep in mind. And again, you may be prompted to add notes. So if I go up to the top here and I verify my report, this is going to look a little scary because I haven't entered any data. So there are a lot of sort of issues that will appear here on the screen. A lot of required fields that have not been satisfied, and also some edit checks. So I can click on any of these edit checks to view. This is what my scary report looks like now, to view these edit checks. And again, it's just because there's no data that has been listed here. But if you do get an edit check and there's data and your data is like valid, there's no typos that have been entered, it's common to get edit checks. There are a lot of edit checks that IMLS, the Institute of Museum and Library Services, has on this report. And again, they're for all libraries across the US. So you may be out of range. It's very common for you to have to respond to edit checks. And to do that, you would add a little note, that annotation that we see in this little box over here. And we encourage you to please paint us a picture for us. The Institute of Museum and Library Services does not know the situation at your local library. So let them know, explain why this is, why, in this case, in the prior year, your programs were greater than 40, and in this year there's 0. So why is that? We were closed down for renovations. We didn't offer any programs this year, whatever the case may be, but try and make it something that is makes sense. Like it paints a picture of why this happened at your library. And you may not always know the reason why, but you have a way better idea of why the numbers are the way they are at your library than somebody who is not at your library. And the other reason to make them clear is for future you or future staff at your library, even, or other libraries around the state. These annotations can be viewed in the reports. So once we launch reports, and you're looking at maybe some of your peer libraries or even your own data. Maybe that's just me that forgets what happens years later. But you're like, oh, I'll remember that. And then you don't. So you can type in this explanation around what happened with your data, what's going on in your library this particular, in 2025. And then you can look back at these in the reports, or your peers can look at them. So if they're looking at, where we want to really put some more effort into children's programs. I want to see, what the children's program numbers are for other libraries that are similar size of mine. And I'm going to include some annotations here to see what's going on with the data. Maybe I'm looking at trend data across the years and I've noticed, oh, there's a big jump in this particular year. Like what's the rationale for that? These annotations can be included so that they can provide a story to your data. So that's why I say, please use them. Try and reread them at the end, try and use them well, try and think of it, if somebody else outside of my library reads this note, are they going to understand what's happening at my library? Because the data is great. You spend a lot of time capturing the data. It's really useful to have this data, but the notes tell a story about what's going on, something that the data can't always say. So please try and review those notes again. You can refresh your screen. You can see all the notes down here at the bottom. You can print them off. There are lots of opportunities to review the notes. To get out of this scary screen that is yelling at me with all of these edit checks and questions that need to be answered, this is where the review button comes in handy. It'll just take me right out of that verify mode. And you can verify again as many times as you like. Even if I add an annotation, or if I enter in some type of value listed here, like if I enter in this phone number here, it's not going to immediately get rid of the edit check. Like I've entered the number, I've exited the field, it's still saying required, a value is required. It's going to say that until you get out of this mode. You can, I think, just verify again. You don't have to hit the review button, and then boom, that particular question will now be resolved because I've verified again. But it doesn't happen immediately. So if you add a note, you add the field, it's still gonna kind of look red and stuff until you do a second verify, or until you hit the review button to get out of that mode. You can go ahead and submit/lock when you're ready, or when you think you're ready. Verify is an optional step. But if you try and submit/lock and there are fields that are required that haven't been satisfied, or edit checks that are flagged that don't have a response to them, you'll get this pop-up that says lock failed, and then it will show you, in this case, quite a few issues. So you can go ahead and cancel that. So that's why verify is optional. You don't have to do the verify, but I love verifying to sort of see where I'm at. You know, how many questions do I have to complete, or have any edit checks popped up that I need to think about? So that's why I love this verify mode. And again, once you're in the scary, hopefully it's not so scary. Maybe you just have a couple of things to get out of it. You can hit review. There are a couple buttons up here at the top, or links, I should say, up here at the top that I also want to point out. One is the definitions. So I mentioned that you can add these internal notes. So on this definition screen, you'll have the indicator name. This is just like the question, if you will. The definition that is supplied by the state library is listed here. And then there's this notes column. These are your internal notes, not the annotations, but the internal notes. So I added one test note, I think way down here. Let me just search for it. Oh, there's a few test things. Yeah, here we go. On 11/5/25, I have added in this note. This will push forward in time. This is my internal note. This is like, run XYZ report out of the ILS to get this. Or, I've clarified, and this particular position is considered, librarian position. So include that. Whatever that may be. You can delete these if they're no longer applicable in the future. So let's say in 5 years you change ILSs and you have these notes about that previous ILS, how to run reports. You can just go into that question. In this case, it was my 11/5/25 question, and delete that note. Like in the future years, it's just going to keep pushing forward in time. So I come in here in 2031 and I can go ahead and remove this, and they'll say, are you sure? And I'm like, yes. And then boom, it's gone. And when I refresh my screen up here, that note on 11/5/25 will be gone. Sorry, it's down here a little bit further. But these are, I think, helpful to help you document the process locally, but the annotations are kind of required, if you will. Not on each question, but I guarantee almost every library will have an edit check that they have to answer in some way. You either have to review the data and see if there was an error in the data, but most cases the data is perfectly accurate and they just want a little bit of a description around, maybe it doesn't fit their particular range. So you will add that. Hopefully that makes sense to everyone. There's also this print option listed here. This will allow you to print off a copy of your survey. I usually just like to print it straight to the printer. You can download it as a PDF. Sometimes those repeating rows, though, get a little bit squished when you download as a PDF. So if you just want to print it to your printer, or you can save it often as a PDF here. It will allow you. There are usually some more settings too. So if you want to like remove the borders or things like that, you can do that. Once you have submitted your form and locked it, you should get an email automatically letting you know that it's been locked. And there's a little report that you can click on in there to review just with your own library's data in it. Any questions that have come up, Angela, or anything that anyone wants me to repeat again or go over again?
Yes, actually, we did have a question about printing, which is very timely. Somebody was wanting to know, is there a way to just print it a particular section instead of printing the entirety of the report?
Yeah, so if you download the PDF with breaks, that is going to start each new section in a different group. So you'll see the first section listed here, the general section listed on the next one. So if then you just want to print off like section 8, for example, you'll see that's page 16 of 47. Then I would just like go to my printer. Sorry, let me dismiss that. Go to my printer, and instead of printing the entire thing, I would just print like page 16, for example, and then it will just have this particular page. That's kind of the only workaround to for printing, is to be able to just download it with breaks and then figure out which page or pages, if you want like a range that you want to be printed. So in this case, now I have it going all the way to 20, for example, because this includes probably most, if not all, of section 8 in that case. Hopefully that answers the question.
Great. We had a follow-up printing question.
Mhm.
Can we print with current entries and previous year data as well?
Yeah, it should show the previous year data, particularly when you do this print, because it will show them. Oh, actually, it's not, is it? It's not showing the previous year. Yeah, I can add. I should be able to add the previous year to this option. I will do that.
Oh, great. Thank you. One question we had from earlier, and I believe we knew the answer here. Just to clarify, can multiple people be in this report at the same time,
Yes.
logged in?
Yes. Great question. Yes. Multiple people can be at this report at the same time, logged in. Ideally, you're not working on the exact same field at the exact same time. So, this is a very rare thing. But let's say I'm in this report and Kelly is also in this report, and we're both typing in question 01-001. Whoever exits the field last will have their data saved. So that's, it's only a concern if you're in the same field at the same time. I might type that I'm the survey contact and type my name in here, and Kelly might type that she's the survey contact. If she exits the field last, it's going to save her entry over my entry. But most of the time that is not the case. If you're working in here with a colleague, they probably are working on their own section and you're working on a separate section. Absolutely 100% great. Not a problem.
Fantastic. Let me look through the chat here. I think you actually answered most of this as we were going along. Uh,
As you look through, I will say that you can use any browser. I think I happen to be on Firefox right now, or maybe Chrome. Any browser is fine as long as it's supported by their vendor, meaning it's not obscure, like you're not using Microsoft Explorer. I was just trying to think of the old name. Then you should be good. You can log in and log out as many times as you need to. If you happen to walk away and get automatically logged out, again, as long as you've exited the last field that you're in, everything saves as it goes. So you don't have to submit it in any particular order. You can come in and do, section 7 today and section 6 tomorrow. Yeah, hopefully that answers some general questions too about the tool.
okay. Oh, we did have another question here. Can we see last year's notes? Story, were you wondering about the notes, like the local notes or the annotations that you left? Yes, she said yes, both. I don't know if those were loaded, seeing
Don't
as
have
there
them
was.
loaded, no.
Okay, I was going to say, I think, is that something that happens if we have been with you for multiple years?
Yes, yeah, so next year you'll
Okay.
be able to see last year's notes, yeah.
Okay, so yes, unfortunately, while that would normally be a feature that's offered because we have switched platforms, that's something that wasn't easily able to be transferred from Bibliostat over to LibPAS. If there is something, annotations in a particular section that you think might be helpful or that you're looking for in particular, shoot me an email because I might have access to the files that have those, and it wouldn't be necessarily pretty, but you could, I might be able to help you match them up to the numbers so that you don't have to look things up again. But again, if there's something in particular you're looking for, shoot me an email and we'll figure out if we can get that to you. Oh, we had a few questions about evening hours and weekend hours, and I'll pop up here because I don't have it on the screen. I think this is just a little different because of how we had the hours set up this year, so it's not quite as obvious. But evening hours, just for anybody listening, that's going to be your hours after 5 p.m. So 5 p.m. or later. Weekend hours, we are just looking obviously on Saturday and Sunday, but the standard for those of you who have asked is it would be 4 hours on one or one day has to have 4 hours to be considered like meeting your weekend hour requirements. Let's see. Oh, we got another question here. Somebody's going back to the printing feature. When I try to, oh, my chat's moving on me. When I try to use the print and save option with and without breaks, my outlet information overlay lines, so overlays the lines so that the words get jumbled.
Yeah,
So,
that's if you just use the straight print option, that's gonna be your best bet for those repeating rows sections.
okay. So, uh, Deborah, when you're asking about seeing last year's notes, yes. So, unfortunately, as I said, those weren't able to be transferred over from the previous year. So, reach out to me if that's something that I might be able to help you get if there's a particular section or for the whole one. I'll see if there's some way I can easily get those files to you in a way that are readable. As far as last year's stats, most of those should be showing up in your report. Those we were able to load. If you look to the right of your answer field, that's what you're seeing in the light gray there. That should be your immediate previous year's answers. And if you need answers previous to that, again, hit my email because I have physical copy. Well, sorry, PDFs, I should say. I don't have the physical copies. I don't have a filing cabinet that big. I have copies of the PDFs of your reports from previous years on hand. So I could shoot those to you very easily if you needed those. Let me see. Okay, does anyone have any more questions for the LibPass, for Lindsay, for anything as far as interacting with this? Not seeing anything pop up. Okay, well, Lindsay, thank you very much for that. We really appreciate that. I know, and I appreciate everybody out there who's listening to that. I know you guys have been through the ringer, not just this year, but the last couple of years. The annual report has proven remarkably challenging. And my apologies for any time I'm like, oh, hey, if you survive this, next year will seem great, and then I'm dooming us each and every time. So I'm not going to say that, but I have high hopes. It's going to be less of a transition for everyone. Um, if you have any questions, as Lindsay said, you can reach out to her and I will leave that email. And in fact, I have another slide up here I'll throw up here. Let me start sharing my screen. We'll get that up here in just a moment.
Yes,
Um,
thank you so much, Angela, and thank you for everyone for all your patience. It's always tough in these transitions, and we appreciate you working through the hiccups with us.
Yes, thank you. As I said, Lindsay's here. I skipped ahead of myself. For anyone who's still there are a few other things that you can use to help you with this report. I have useful tools on the slides here. The annual report page has links to everything that I mentioned or suggest you look at, things like the What Goes Where handout. We have the workshop recording and the slides if you want to reference those, a lot of program specific guidance. I have a little one sheet I did on getting familiar with LibPass. That's kind of a very, very, very abbreviated version of what you just saw today. There are the pop-ups and definitions and the tooltips and the report that Lindsay shared with you. And of course, as far as things you can use, we're going to skip that. You can always contact me. My email, I do answer. If you have anything content related, if you're wondering how to interpret a question or what we're looking for, please, please, please contact me. I'm probably going to be your best bet, even if I give you a deer in the headlights look. I am going to be the person who will ultimately try to come back to you with an answer or tell you what you need to do. If you're having a problem with the interface itself, that's where Lindsay is magician. Especially, you can always ask me about it. If it's a simple fix, I can probably take care of it for you. If it's something going catastrophically wrong, or it's just not functioning the way it's supposed to, that's where she'd really be able to shine. Again, everybody who has been here today, thank you. You should get your LEU hopefully within the next, I'll say within the next week. I'm hoping to do sooner rather than later. It's been a little crazy, you all. If you're watching this, be sure to create one for yourself using the instructions. And if there are no more questions, then I think we can wrap this up. Okay, well, that looks like it's it. Thank you so much. Lisa, if you're listening, if you could stop the recording for us, that'd be great.